Welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. Living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to get ahead really sucks. But you can take control of your money and live the life that you dream about with knowledge and commitment. I'll provide you with the knowledge. It's up to you to make the commitment. So last week we talked with Patty, and she had some questions for me, and it was so well received. We've asked another one of our listeners, Brooke, to join us today. So Brooke's got a couple questions for me. So welcome, Brooke.
Thank you, Paula. This is my first question.
Okay.
I am recovering from a divorce, and financially it was catastrophic. So at the end of the day, or I should say at the end of the month, it's always a coin toss for me, because let's say I have $100 left over. Am I putting the $100 in savings? Am I putting the $100 in an IRA? I just never know what I should be doing. And it's very confusing.
Okay. So without giving me specific information, do you have an emergency account set up?
I have an emergency account set up. I can't tell you that it will cover 6 months, but it would probably cover 3 or 4.
Okay, that's good. Are you contributing to a 401k?
I have not been.
Okay. So I guess my answer to that question would be, because you have an emergency account, and if you're comfortable with that emergency account, I would start contributing to that IRA, because you want to take advantage of compounding. So
yes,
you want to be getting invested as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you. And then I have another question. I have significant credit card debt, again, as a result of my divorce. And I am one of those people that the credit card companies love, because they're charging me an incredibly high interest rate. So I have read Susie Orman. I'm curious to know what you think is the best way to tackle credit card debt. Do you pay down the lowest credit card balance that you have, and then as you continue to do that, you just keep adding on to the next one? Do I tackle the highest interest rate card first, or the highest balance first? Again, very confused.
Well, I hope not to confuse you any further, but I guess I would say that it depends. And the reason that I say that is because you've talked about 2 of the different methods for paying off debt. One is the snowball method. The other one was the debt avalanche, but there are 2 others that we'll talk about in just a second. But here's how I look at paying off debt. So for me, when I think about paying off debt, I think about getting rewarded. So in the snowball method, that's where you pay off the smallest balance first. And then as you pay that off, then you start working on the second one or the third one, or however many debts that you have. But what it does is it gives you that accomplishment that you've paid off that debt. On the other hand, the debt avalanche is the one you talked about that pays off the highest interest rate credit card first. So your other debt with lower interest rate isn't accumulating as much. But there's also the method of debt consolidation. So it's saying that you're going to take all your debt, consolidate it into one monthly payment. You can kind of work with a payment that's going to be in your budget and a time frame. So it may take you a little bit longer to pay that debt off, but it's one payment. You're getting it paid off. You've got a plan. So that's kind of another option that you might want to look at. And then the other option, if you've got a lot of debt, you might want to call a credit counseling service and see if they can help you work with your creditors to maybe lower your interest rates or lower the amount that is due. Does that answer your question, Brooke?
Yeah, but I have another question. If I want to consolidate all of the debt, where do I go to do that? Because I'm assuming that I'm still going to be charged a really high interest rate. So what do you recommend, or who would you have me call?
I would start with your bank or your credit union, whoever you're working with currently, and see what they have to offer. There's some great calculators on my website, paulachristine.com. There's a resource there that talks about paying off debt that has everything that we just talked about, plus links to the calculators. And what I would suggest is you go to each one and use the calculators to see what one works for you. But the thing is you got to keep rewarding yourself. You got to say, I got one paid off. Great. Now I got to celebrate a little bit, because you need that to continue to encourage yourself to get that debt paid off. So whatever plan you do, just pick one.
Okay. No, that is great. And that kind of rolls into my next question, which is cash versus a credit card. You know, I sometimes feel that I'm more mindful of how I spend when I'm using cash. But if I use cash, then I'm not earning points on my credit card that I could use to pay for something else.
It's whatever works best for you. I mean, I'm more conscious too when I have cash. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm more aware of what I'm spending. But let's just say that you have $500 a month to spend. That's like your allowance. And you can do it a couple different ways. You can just give yourself, $500 a month to spend, and when it's gone, it's gone. Or you can just keep track of it on your credit card. Because I know that I used my credit card points to pay for my business class tickets to Greece this year. So there's some advantages to using your credit card, but you have to keep track of it. Now, you're in a situation where we just talked about that you have high debt. So I would go to the cash method and not use your credit card.
Okay.
You'd just be adding more to your debt.
Okay.
Only use a credit card if you can pay it off every month.
Well, I will say that I do have one credit card that I use exclusively that I pay off every single month. That was what the card I was referring to.
Okay.
The other cards that I'm still paying down, I do not use them.
Oh, perfect. Then yes, as long as you're paying it off and you're using those points for other things, just keep track of it. So just don't overspend. If you hit to 500, that was your number. Don't go 501. Don't go 550. Don't go 600. Only go to 500. Okay.
All right. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
So back to the trying to pay down debt, it's a balance between being conscious or conscientious of spending money, a smart manner, but also I like to have a life. How do you do that? I mean, I don't want to punish myself all year long, not take a trip or not go to a nice restaurant, but I'm also really trying to keep my eye on the prize and bringing the debt down.
Develop a plan. And if you're happy with the results of that plan, I mean, just like say that I've got X number of credit card debt and I do want to take, a trip this year. And I'm not talking about like a $10,000 trip, but, you may want to go out, Saugatuck for the weekend or something like that. Just plan it and know that you may take you an extra few months to pay off that debt because you have to have a life. Because if you're just working to pay off your debt, I mean, that really sucks. So you want to be able to do fun things because you'll just end up resenting the debt and the situation. And you can't live life that way. It's not any fun.
Okay. I have a couple more questions. This is great. Thank you, Paula. Let's say I am in a situation where I finally have been able to pay down all of my debts. Going forward, do I allow myself, let's say I love to travel and I want to take one really cool trip with my kids once a year. Am I allowed to use a credit card, I do have one card that's a pretty low interest rate. Am I allowed to use that card to put the trip on the card, but no other debt, no other credit card debt, and then make a commitment to myself, let's say, to have that paid off within 6 months or 10 months?
Well, first of all, Brooke, you're allowed to do whatever that you want, but I would say that can you save for that trip for 6 months and then pay cash for it?
Okay.
I'm just asking you that question. If you can do that, that's what I would do. But if you can't, like you said, if you know you can pay it off in 6 months, then go ahead and charge it. Get those points because then you can use them for maybe another trip down the road.
Okay.
Pay it off in 6 months. And then when that 6 months is over, start putting money aside to pay for your next vacation. And then maybe you can pay cash for that one.
Okay. All right. That's great. And then my last question, which is really I have 2 children, about my daughter. My daughter is a nurse, and she recently became aware of an incentive at work that if she picks up an extra shift, she will make $1,000 in that one shift. And, I can't tell her to pick up 3 a week, but I am encouraging her to pick up 1 or 2 a month because that could make a huge difference for her financially. So let's say she picks up 1 extra shift a month, which is an extra $12,000 a year. Where do you suggest how should she use that money? Should she put part of it in a 401k, enjoy the other half? Like, what are your suggestions on that?
Well, without knowing her personal situation, if she has no debt, well, first, if she has debt, then I would use that to get out of debt.
She just has student loans. Well, otherwise no debt.
Yeah. Well, that is a debt. So she should work on, getting a plan to pay that off. And then I would suggest, depending on how much she's putting into her 401k now and what her income is, potentially she might want to max out a Roth IRA if she can. If not, maybe increase her 401k contribution and then use a part of it to travel or have fun.
Okay, great.
But tell her if she could do that once a month, man, can you imagine how much money she could have just doing that for a year if she did it once a week?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, once a week is tough because it's 12-hour shifts and they alternate between day and night. But listen, hypothetically, that would be amazing. But I'm thinking even if she could do 2 a month, what a huge difference that would make.
$24,000. That's a part-time job.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Good for her. Good for her.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much. I appreciate your insight.
Thanks, Brooke. Those were some great questions. I just want everybody to know that this is related to Brooke's situation. It doesn't apply to everybody, but if you have specific questions that you would like me to answer, please email me at paulachristine.com. Also, check out some of my resources at paulachristine.com. Thanks again, Brooke.
Thank you.